is it still good afternoon or is it already good evening? It's something in between. In any case, welcome to ZEF. Great pleasure to see lots of familiar and not so familiar faces here. Welcome to, I think it's our first public board lecture. This is something that we discussed during the last year's board meeting at ZEF, our scientific advisory board, and I'm very pleased to welcome specifically Mohamed Hassan, who is the speaker of tonight. Also Hans van Ginkel, our board chair, is here. Lisa Fennelly is probably joining us in a second. Let me say a couple of words to Mohamed. He's an Oxford-trained mathematician. Was after his degree in Oxford, went back to Sudan, became a professor at the University of Khartoum, was for a long time the dean of the School of Mathematical Sciences at the University of Khartoum, and then embarked on an impressive career that took him through many academies, many academies. And this is, in a way, also where we met. I think the first time that we met must have been 2010, when you were still in Nairobi, when you were still president of the African Academy of Sciences. And that's where somehow the two of us meet. The center that I was heading at that time, the International Center for Insect Physiology and Ecology, the founding director, Thomas Odyambo, was one of the midwives, I believe, of the African Academy of Sciences. And I think originally ISIPE hosted also the office of the African Academy of Sciences before they moved to this beautiful lot out there in Karen. Mohamed was also for a long time the president of TWAS, executive director of TWAS. And again, I think Thomas Odyambo also played a pretty crucial role in the creation of TWAS. So, in any case, Mohamed, an extremely well-qualified speaker to tell us about promoting SDI for global sustainability and economic transformation in Africa. The floor is yours. Welcome. And let's give him a round of applause.
And I would like to thank you and the leadership in ZEF for inviting me to give this talk. It's my pleasure to be here one day earlier than the meeting to give this presentation. Well, as Christian said, I'm really going to look at issues related to global sustainability that actually relate to Africa and what Africa needs in terms of capacities in order to be fully engaged and a full partner in the global effort to address the sustainability question. So my talk will consist of three parts. I will first look at the challenges and opportunities that face global sustainability. And then I will look at the role of centers of excellence and then the role of academies of science. That are two areas that I'm very familiar with, but there are many areas one can consider for global sustainability. So the challenges and opportunities, of course, the ones that relate to the global sustainability problems are very well known to all of you here. They were first framed by the United Nations at the Rio +10 meeting in Johannesburg. These are the familiar water security, energy security, health security, food security, and biodiversity, the areas that are called WEHAB, coined by the Kofi Annan, the Secretary General of the United Nations. But then Rio +20 added a number of other challenges to the water, energy, health, agriculture, biodiversity, cities and urbanization, disasters, peace. I'm very happy to see here mobility and migration is one of the leading areas there, but that also relate to peace, inequalities, education, and jobs. So these sort of sustainability problems are really going to frame the Sustainable Development Goals that are going to be endorsed very soon. But we'll see these goals, 17 goals, all these issues are listed there as very specific Sustainable Development Goals. So I forgot to mention that the two most critical as cross-cutting problems are those that relate to poverty and those that relate to climate change. These have been identified in Rio +20 as the most important, the most challenging cross-cutting problems. So these sustainability challenges are global, they are complex, and they are interconnected. And Africa is most seriously and severely affected by the sustainability problems. And the frontier science, technology, and innovation do provide integrated solutions to these sustainability challenges. In addition to that, we need international collaboration in research and education, in sciences, international collaboration that is based on shared goals and capacity needs, which is critical to addressing these sustainability challenges. The second challenge that I would like to highlight here is the global science disparities. This is a flat map of the Earth. You see Africa in the middle, but the size of Africa is actually much bigger than what you have seen. In fact, in Africa, you can very easily put the United States, China, India, the whole of Europe, and various other countries. So it's a huge continent. And many people don't really realize the size of this huge continent. And yet, when it comes, if you try to resize the countries according to research output, this is scientific research published in international journals, look at the size of Africa, how it becomes very, very small compared to the rest of the world. By the way, this is a few years old, because I think at the moment probably China is going to be much bigger than Japan and South Korea. So it's a bit old in terms of productivity of scientific research. Africa in 2013 contributed only 2% of the research papers indexed in the Web of Science. 2%. Imagine a population of nearly, is it 20% now? 20% of the world population, or less than that, but contributing only 2%. South Korea, small country, contributes 4%, twice as much as that. So the productivity in terms of research papers, in terms of frontier science, is very little. So is the research expenditure. Again, we see global inequalities in research and development expenditure, and you can see also the rescaling of the continents according to how much money they spend in research. What is more disturbing is that a number of countries in Africa depend almost totally on foreign grant money from overseas to fund the research. Look at Mozambique, nearly 80% of the funds that are provided for research and development in Mozambique come from outside. So the countries themselves are not spending that much money in research and development. So the two main challenges that I just mentioned are the first, how to improve the quality and relevance of education and research, especially in S&T poorest countries, to enhance their capacities to participate in global knowledge production, and to increase the national, and I emphasize the national, and global investments in research and development to generate science and technology and innovation-based solutions to critical sustainability problems. So the strategies for global sustainability should really promote global partnership to address these two very specific challenges. Who is going to lead this effort? In my view, this group of 20 should really have a special responsibility to lead the global partnership and investment in sustainability science and frontier science and technology. Why? This group of 20 control almost 90% of the research production. They contribute to 90% of the economic activity, and they emit almost 80% of carbon dioxide and harmful gases in the atmosphere. What is really interesting is that 10 of the countries in the G20 are developing countries, and you see the list there, especially the big ones: Brazil, China, India, Indonesia, Mexico, Saudi Arabia, South Africa, and Turkey. So this effort, if it is going to be led by the G20, is a genuine North-South collaboration. And just imagine if they all agree to uplift the status of science and technology in Africa. I think the solution can be provided very quickly in a few years. Next, I just want to highlight the opportunities. So I finished with the challenges, and the opportunities that I would like to highlight are those that are provided by frontier science and technology. And I want to talk a little bit about information and communication technologies, the renewable energy technologies, the biotechnologies, and nanotechnology. And I would like to at least give examples in the area of agriculture in Africa. Why agriculture? Because agriculture employs 70% of the African workforce and accounts for 60% of the continent's export area. Information and communication technologies, of course, very well known how they are being very useful in Africa for monitoring environmental change and natural resources through high-resolution satellite data and images, for improving early warning and response systems to disaster, for providing wireless communication and distant communication to rural communities, as you can see in these photos, these pictures, and especially for providing farmers with instant access to market information, for informed decision on the best place and time to sell their products, and to facilitate training for farmers and exchange of best practices in food processing and marketing. So, and there are examples in Africa. I mean, these are just pictures of places where this information technology has been extremely useful and beneficial. But Africa is still the lowest internet, has the lowest internet penetration. Only 16% of the African people have access to the internet. And even in the majority of those, the access is very slow. So you have to wait for a long time to get something downloaded from the website. Whereas Europe has the largest penetration rate in the world. Renewable energies technologies, and again, here I would like to highlight the importance of this for Africa, because Africa really has the greatest potential and need for renewable energy, both potential and need. 325 days of bright sunshine, 2,000 kilowatt per square meter per year. Africa has a large coastline, an abundance of wind power and wave power, as well as geothermal and hydropower. And yet, 70% of Africans, especially the small-scale farmers, 90% of them have no electricity and need access to small-scale renewable energy systems for basic needs. So Africa really needs global partnership and large investment in renewable energy and rural electrification. Energy is really a cost-cutting issue. Without energy, you cannot have any of the other sustainable problems solved. We're seeing big projects now being established in Africa. Perhaps the biggest one is the Grand Renaissance Dam, which is currently under construction, which is very close to Sudan. It's actually bordering Sudan almost. So if anything happens to it, it will be flooded with water. I hope not. But the potential is enormous. This dam is estimated to provide in full capacity something like 6,000 megawatts of electricity. Ethiopia at the moment does not consume more than 2,000. So they have a lot of electricity that they can sell to the neighboring countries, especially Sudan, Uganda, and Kenya. And there is a huge effort now led by the World Bank trying to utilize the excess of electricity generated by the dam to electricity poor countries in the neighborhood. Obama, as you remember, some time ago, launched this Power Africa initiative. I haven't heard much after that noise. If Obama wanted to have a new legacy before he leaves, I think this should be one of them. Like these 3 or 4 legacies that he has already established. But this is going to be a vital. Rural electrification is a human right. As I said, you cannot have food security, water security without energy security. Solar-powered water pumps for drinking and for drip irrigation. And these are just examples of how useful solar electricity has been in a number of countries in West Africa. These are small-scale projects, like pilot projects. You see lots of photographs here. They are true, but they are small-scale. So we really need these efforts to be scaled up. So, biotechnologies, of course, are technologies that have a lot of promise for Africa. There's new applications in agriculture, medicine, and environment. The developing of pest-resistant, drought-resistant, and higher crop yields. They have the potential of increasing productivity and income for small-scale farmers, reducing use of insecticides, and increasing nutritional value and vitamin level of crops. And then here I listed also a couple of examples. New varieties of high-yielding sorghum resistant to drought and the parasitic weed strider. This is something that is not using GMOs, but using traditional breeding. And the person who really helped in doing that, a very famous Ethiopian scientist called H.A. Christian, you probably met him before. He won the World Food Prize a few years ago. And this has been extremely useful even in my own country, Sudan. This sort of technique, yield and sorghum resistant to drought, has been very useful in increasing the productivity of sorghum in a number of countries, including my own. Retail cotton currently has recorded economic success in 3 countries, only 3 countries, Burkina Faso, South Africa, and again my own country. But what we are waiting for is the application of GMOs. And there are new varieties of bananas that are resistant to the bacterial wilt. And this is awaiting currently approval of biotechnology and biosafety built in Uganda. This has been going on for maybe 2 years, Christian, or something, but still the approval has not been made. So while scientists in Uganda push for law on GMOs, the neighboring country, Kenya, is doing something different. I think they have been influenced largely by European attitude toward GMOs. So the Kenyan Biodiversity Coalition, you can see demonstrating outside the parliament, demanding strict adherence to labeling of GMOs. But do not choose my destiny for me, is their slogan. And this is a very bad sign. Because this is just a country neighboring Uganda. But let us hope that Uganda succeeds in getting the biodiversity, biosafety, and the GMOs law approved. Then at least they will have some successes to tell the Europeans and the Africans. The World Research Papers in Biotechnology, however, published by Africans in the Web of Science is still very small, 2%. And you can see here the largest country, the country that has the largest activity in biotechnology, the United States, with 6%. Finally, the nanotechnologies. And this is, as many of you know, is the fastest growing technology in the world today. With estimated global market of something like $2.5 trillion in the year 2015. And promising applications in all sustainability challenges, including water, energy, and so on. And here I just highlighted the importance of nanotechnology, or the application of nanotechnology to agriculture, including precision farming, so nanotech-based sensors and monitoring systems, providing efficient delivery system for water, nutrients, and pesticides, and providing a smart food packaging system. This has not yet been implemented in any of the African countries as yet. But for Africa to at least begin to think about how important these promises are, they have to have the capacity to do so. But unfortunately, again, the research that emerges out of Africa in the area of nanotechnology is very small, about 2% again, whereas South Korea is about 6%. So that is, again, is an area where Africa or African researchers need to pay more attention. Now let me turn to the role of centers of excellence. And centers of excellence and world-class universities are of critical importance in advancing international cooperation. Institutions with excellence in research and education have magnetic power to attract the best and brightest from all parts of the world. Promoting excellence in science requires, however, free international collaboration and exchanges involving leading scientists worldwide. There are various types of international centers of excellence, and I want to be inclusive here. You can have international centers, you can have regional centers, you can have national centers, but you can have also centers like university institutes or university centers like ZEF. It's a center of excellence. You can also have departments within institutes, and you can also have units within departments if they are doing excellent work and doing publications. So there are a variety of centers of excellence. Of course, the largest center of excellence in the world is ZEF. It's the biggest one. ICTP, where I worked for a number of years, I did my research, most of my research, International Center for Theoretical Physics, based in Trieste. And we also have in Trieste the International Center of Genetic Engineering and Biotechnology. And these are basic sciences, essentially. But CERN, in addition to doing research and seeking and finding answers to questions about the universe, like the Higgs boson or dark matter, it also has another global mission. Mission of technology, how to advance the frontiers of technology, of collaboration, of bringing nations together through science, science diplomacy, and education, the training of scientists of tomorrow. And they do excellent work in Africa. They are helping, for example, Rwanda to build digital libraries. And also they are helping a number of countries in the area of physics teaching of physics. And of course communication. We all know the World Wide Web was actually offered to the world by CERN. The International Center I just mentioned was founded by Nobel Prize winner Abdul Salam. It's an institution that is run by scientists, for scientists, to support the best science possible, with special attention to the needs of developing countries. It provides training and skills to scientists from developing countries, and every year they organize 60 conferences and workshops, and they welcome between 4,000 and 5,000 scientists from around 130 nations each year. Last year, the ICTP celebrated, by the way, its 50th anniversary. Now here's something that Africa, I think, should be proud of. The square kilometer area. This is the largest radio telescope in the world, which is going to be set up in Africa and partly in Australia. It maps a billion of observable galaxies to determine their formation, their information, and evolution, almost from the Big Bang. It explores things like dark matter and dark energy, gravitational waves, things that have not been confirmed yet. What is really important is the computing capacity, the computing engine, and links capacity, which they say is going to be bigger than the internet traffic, bigger than the internet traffic. So this is really a huge computational capacities. And in many ways, I think it is going to open a new dawn for science in Africa. It will boost Pan-African collaboration in science and education. It will foster a new generation of highly skilled computer scientists, engineers, and technicians, and it will also promote international collaboration and partnership. But coming back to the international centers of excellence, and again focusing on the centers that are in Africa. In Africa at the moment, we have 6 what are called international centers of excellence. ECP and ICBEB, these are in the biological sciences, more in the basic sciences. And then we have 4 centers that belong to the CDIR, IITA, ICRAF, ILRI, and Africa Rise. And I just want to mention that centers of excellence have the power for international collaboration. And here's just examples. In 2013, Nigeria released 2 maize hybrids resistant to strider, drought, and low soil nitrogen. That was developed by IITA, International Institute for Tropical Agriculture, in collaboration with national research institutes and universities in Nigeria and the United States. The power of attraction. Centers of excellence do attract eminent people. Not only just talented students, but you can see here, they also attract politicians. And I think you know them. Is this clear enough, that face? This is Angela Merkel visiting ILRI. ILRI is Biosciences, Eastern and Central Africa. And this, by the way, is Bill Gates. So both of them have been to ILRI simply because it's a famous center, it's an international center of excellence, and I want to see what they are doing. Bill Gates gave a grant to them. But I really want to emphasize for Africa the importance of centers of excellence located within universities. And I give an example here of TWAS, a very modest example, where TWAS has established a funding research grants program that provides funding of the order of $100,000 to small groups within departments or small units within departments that are doing excellent work on the basis of competition and merit. And among those that have been identified and supported by TWAS with this $100,000 grant is the toxicology group, environment unit, University of Benin, electrochemistry and polymer science group, the Department of Chemistry, University of Sheikh Anta Diop in Senegal, and the Institute of Endemic Diseases in Sudan, which is in the University of Khartoum, which is probably one of the best institutes for endemic diseases in Africa. The World Bank, after so many years, perhaps they learned a little bit from TWAS, this modest example, they have come up with a much bigger sort of granting program. They wanted to support what they call centers of excellence. World Bank, African Association of University Centers of Excellence. And they initially provided something like $430 million to support university-based centers of excellence. The selection is made on the basis of merit by the African Association of Universities. And so far, this is probably not recent, 18 centers have been selected in West Africa, Western Central Africa. 10 of them are in Nigeria, and each one receives a grant of about $8 million. Now, here is an example of a grant that was provided to the West African Center for Crop Improvement. This West African Center, Christiana has been well aware that they work very closely with the African Center for Crop Improvement in the University of KwaZulu-Natal, and the WACCI is in the University of Ghana. But they work closely. This is why I think that collaboration is so important with the university, with Cornell University. So they have been awarded a grant, again, by the World Bank for $8 million. And this is something that happened last Friday. By the way, I don't know, Christian, whether you are aware of that, but last Friday, African and international partners have launched the so-called Alliance for Accelerating Excellence in Science in Africa, a new initiative that aims to help drive Africa's research agenda across the continent. AESA was established by the African Academy of Sciences in Nepal, the African Union of Nepal, and the amount of money that was pledged on Friday was an initial seed sum of money of $5.5 million provided by the Gates Foundation, the Wellcome Trust, and this is perhaps the first time that these funding organizations join forces to support something specific that promotes excellence in Africa. This is a very good sign, an excellent sign. And they hope that in the coming few years there will be more funding, more substantial. There was also an announcement of two very important programs, Developing Excellence in Leadership, Training and Science, TWAS, and the Grand Challenges Africa. This is really health related. Again, giving grants in the area of health. So finally, let me go to the role of academies of science. And I want to be very clear about the definition, because some people use academies for other purposes. I'm really talking here about merit-based academies of science as independent organizations of individuals that bring together as members the most eminent scientists, nationally, regionally, or globally, and that elect new members on the basis of merit and accomplishments alone. With this definition, we find that the oldest academy is actually the Academia Lince in Rome. It was established in 1603, but then it discontinued. In fact, Galileo was one of the founders of that academy. Then it discontinued for a long time and re-established in 1847. But the oldest continuing academy is the German National Academy of Sciences and Engineering. And this is for the record, because for many years before Leopoldina was reinvented, people thought that the Royal Society was the oldest continuing academy of sciences. But apparently, Leopoldina is 8 years older than the Royal Society. It was in East Germany, but it was continuing. No matter where it was still continuing. And without any interruption. History can continue. But of course, the Royal Society is very proud to have Newton as one of its presidents. So with this definition, we find that there are about 111 academies of science. Africa has 20. In fact, a few years ago, Africa only had 8. So we managed to establish new academies in Africa, and that's a very, very good sign. Asia 34, the America 17, but most of those are in Europe, 40 academies are in Europe. Why are the academies powerful? The membership, because these are the most accomplished scientists elected by peers on the basis of merit. The power of independence, the power to express independent, objective, unbiased, and evidence-based opinion on critical issues. The power of mobilization of the best scientific minds for the benefit of society in any specific issue. And then science diplomacy. It's something that is coming now as a very important function of academies of science. This is the power to reach out to all other academies and act jointly to address critical issues and regional issues. Now I want to make a distinction between political diplomat and science diplomat. Sir Henry Wotton defined a political diplomat as an honest man sent abroad to lie for the good of his country. But our definition of a science diplomat is an honest man sent abroad to build science bridges for the benefit of humanity. So there are two different definitions. Now, academies do have weaknesses, not only strengths, but they do have very visible weaknesses. The age, of course, we're talking about the cream of the scientific community, defined in terms of accomplishments. The average age of all these academies I mentioned, 111, is over 65 years. Less than 10% of the members of a typical, on average, academy are women. And in fact, if you look at the physical sciences and engineering, you don't find more than 4% of the members are women. Communication and outreach, they know how to communicate among themselves. It's largely confined to the membership. The weak links with decision makers and the general public, and the weak links with young scientists. And the links with young scientists is very, very important, because young scientists are so important when you talk about sustainability issues and the global challenges. They are the people who should drive them. And that's why in a number of countries, these young academies are beginning to emerge. I think the first young academy in the world has been established here in Germany. And then the Dutch Academy followed that. These are academies that elect members only below 40 years. And the membership is not permanent like the other academies. It's only for 5 years, and then they graduate, and then new class comes in. So these young academy boards are very, very important. As I said, the majority of these academies are not functioning well. They are weak academies. But there are others that are active enough to link up with the development community, with government, with scientific community, and with the general public. So I think the most important thing about academies that has happened in the last 10 years is that the academies of science, medicine, and engineering joined forces and formed various networks. These networks are of global nature, like IAP, the Interacademy Panel, which is based in Trieste. This is the network of all the academies of science in the world. IAMP, the network of academies of medicine, and IAC, this is a subset of IAP that deals with specific issues. But it's a network of about 15 academies. And then there are a huge number of regional academies in Africa, in the Islamic world, in the Americas, in Asia, in Europe. In Europe, in fact, we have two big networks of academies, ISAC and ANEA. So there are various regional academies. And the aim here really is to bring together the merit-based academies globally and regionally to strengthen the advisory capacities of member academies, to discuss scientific issues of global and regional concern, and to influence policy by producing and disseminating joint statements and reports on specific issues. IAP, the Global Network of Science Academies, has selected 6 affiliated networks. 4 of them are regional. ISAC is one of them in Europe, IANAS for the Americas, NASAC for Africa, and ASAC for Asia. So these are the largest regional networks that are affiliated to IAP, as well as IAP and IAC. And this is just examples of what these networks of academies have been doing in providing evidence-based advice on global issues. IAP, for example, has been publishing short policy statements on global issues, science education, cloning, biosecurity, forestry, ocean acidification, a very important statement that was presented to the United Nations some time ago on population and on synthetic biology. IAP is doing something similar but focusing on health, and IAC is producing these huge reports, some of you might have seen, on African agriculture, for example, women for science, sustainable energy, and so on. The G8, as you know, the G8 leadership meet every year in a different country. And every time from 2005 until now, every year, the academies of science of the G8 countries meet and issue statements on the topic or the subject that is under discussion by the G8 leadership. So they've been doing that. And in a number of occasions, fortunately, they invited NASAC, it's the network of academies in Africa, to also issue statements. So NASAC, for example, in the year 2005, issued a statement on, plus the G8. This is a statement signed by both on science and technology for African development. And in the year 2007, the meeting was held here, NASA produced a statement on sustainability, energy efficiency, and climate change. Now, some of these statements, in fact, get a lot of visibility. As you can see, the statement that I just mentioned in 2007, and here is again Angela Merkel releasing the statements to the press. You can see how much I like this lady. She's fantastic. I can say more and more what she has been doing recently. But this is again a clear example how she actually accepts, realizes the importance of these statements and releasing them to the press. NASAC and Leopoldina have been collaborating recently in a 3-year project which is funded by the German Ministry of Education and Research. And the goals of this cooperation is to strengthen the policy advice capacity of NASAC, to promote dialogue between science and policy in Africa, and to strengthen contacts between African and European scientists working in policy-relevant research. A series of conferences have been held, training workshops, and one of them is the one I just mentioned at the bottom, the very important one that was held in Addis Ababa and hosted by both the African Union and Economic Commission for Africa, talking about agricultural biotechnology. And the result of all this effort is a publication of 4 policymakers booklet on water, on biotechnology, agricultural biotechnology, disease in Africa, and climate change. So these booklets are small, they are not heavy, easy to read. Copies are available, I think, by the NASA Secretary. Coming back again to these global networks, very recently the global networks have been working together to produce reports like this very important report on the responsible conduct in global research enterprise. The report was prompted by the emergence of cases of scientific fraud and irresponsible behavior in the conduct of scientific research in a number of countries. So this report identifies universal fundamental values that researchers around the world should adhere to and incorporate in their research activities. And together with IAP, a very important statement that was made on antimicrobial resistance. This is addressing the dramatic increase in the number of and distribution worldwide of pathogens resistant to antimicrobial drugs. Very, very important issue. In fact, the last meeting of the G8, G8 Academies, that was the one held a month ago, it dealt with this particular issue. So, we're beginning to see that it is extremely important for the networks of academies to come together, to come closer together. Number one. Number two, many people are very confused about all these networks of academies. When you start to talk to them, they get very confused. So we had a historic meeting in Rome in May 2014 involving the executive committee of IAP and IAP and the IEC. And in that meeting, the co-chairs of these 3 networks decided that it is now time to think about a different organization. So IAP, the Interacademy panel, has agreed to give away its name to become Interacademy Partnership, big umbrella, Interacademy Partnership. And under it will come IAP Science, IAP Research, and IAP Health, and under that will come the regional networks, and then the member academies. This is a structure that is going to be approved, hopefully, in Johannesburg next February. And once it's approved, then we're going to have only one network, one global network, which is the Interacademy Partnership. The future action of this new IAP to continue to strengthen the advisory capacity of our member academies, to provide better services to the scientific community, policymakers, and general public, to continue producing joint authoritative and policy relevant statements and reports on critical sustainability issues, to organize, of course, regional workshops and conferences. But what we really look for, and this is, if it happens, it's going to be a real breakthrough, is about the possibility of becoming, of this big umbrella organization of academies, of becoming independent authoritative advisor to the United Nations. Be invited by the United Nations to be an independent advisor. And the G77 and the G20. Advising them on critical science-based sustainability issues. So in conclusion, this is my last slide. Promoting science, technology, and innovation for sustainability and economic transformation in Africa will require, first, to strengthen the quality of scientific research and training in higher education institutions, to train and retain a new generation of talented problem-solving researchers, especially in frontier interdisciplinary science and technology. Cooperation and partnership with international scientific and financial institutions. These are the 2 issues that I was highlighting. Centers of excellence and academies of science are critical in guiding the future development of science and technology in Africa. This will require, in my view, having in each country a good number of university-based centers and units of research and training excellence in basic and applied sciences, especially in frontier science, technology, and innovation, and an active, and I emphasize active, merit-based science academy that can mobilize accomplished scientists, mentor young talent, and advise governments. Well, with this, I thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mohamed, for this Fascinating talk. Plenty of issues touched upon. Somewhat. GMO. Some pretty clear to me. Floor is yours, please. Maybe one thing. If somebody poses a question, do me a favor, stand up, just show me your name and your affiliation, and then the question. Thank you.
Markus Kaiser, Crossroads Asia. Professor Hassan, thank you very much for your inspiring presentations, and a lot of things scientists, of course, will subscribe to it. I wonder if a similar presentation would have been done in the Russian Federation. The Russian scientists would have said, well, this web science-based acknowledgement of scientific work is Western biased, it's the Anglophone English world. A lot of what we do is not taken into account, is neglected. Maybe there's a lot more in Africa than it's acknowledged in this database. That would be my first question. The second, you referred to a South Korean example, but they did a national-driven knowledge policy, which was reported by the World Bank as a key country of doing a sound knowledge-based economy, whatever, and that is exactly why they are developing much better than others. So would you recommend such type of national-based knowledge policy as South Korea did? Because you did not evaluate you showed the result of their policy, but you did not evaluate the policy itself. Thank you very much indeed.
Well, thank you very much for these two very important observations. Russia, I have to do a lot of work to find out, but I'm sure that they're doing something in Africa. The Chinese are also doing quite a lot. The Indians, the Brazilians, they are all now collaborating with Africa. But this is another lecture, and I think you're absolutely right, it has to be done somehow to see how these developing countries plus Russia, they have a name, they call them BRICS. BRICS. I think that might be an interesting lecture. But you have to find the information. But it would be important to see how BRICS contribute to Africa in terms of research and development. I think that's very, very important observation. South Korea, you're absolutely right. In fact, when South Korea started to develop its educational base and research institutions in the early 60s, Ghana was doing much better. Ghana was definitely doing much better. But look at the situation now in South Korea. The situation not only in Ghana, but in the entire Africa. But you're right, because the emphasis there was national development. It is true that they took a loan from the bank to strengthen their higher education institutions in the early 60s, but it's the way they've done it. Determination and making sure that the resources are available at the national level. This is what we failed to see in Africa. And you see from the figures that I presented, Mozambique, 80% of its money from research and development is from outside. This is completely unsustainable. And it just shows that the government is not really interested in research and development. In fact, it has a very bad side effect.
Please.
Eric Tambo from the United Nations University. Thank you very much for the excellent and brilliant talk. I have a question. I would like to know your definition on the profile of an excellent scientist in Africa. Working in a university like the United Nations University, where we are the bridge between science and policy making, I'm seeing more and more, and coming before in classical university, that in Africa, an excellent scientist is somebody who has an impact on the society in comparison to Europe, where it's the guys who have the brilliant papers in the top-ranked journal. So it will be great to have your opinion on, when you are talking about this excellent society, what is the profile for you of excellence in terms of science in Africa? How do you define that? And the second question is about this GMO and nanotechnologies. When we look on the slide that you have presented, when we see that a country depends on 80% of external funds, which country have the capacity, not only in terms of money, but also in terms of knowledge, to in Africa to afford this kind of high level science and research?
Well, the centers of excellence that I I listed. It's true that I focus on the sciences, both basic and applied. But I also mentioned that ZEF is a center of excellence. This is the interface between science and policy. So it's not just pure science. Science for policy or policy for science is also very important. If you have researchers that can contribute to the international or global knowledge in that specific field, recognized globally as excellent contribution, that is what I call center of excellence, irrespective whether they are doing social sciences, natural sciences, basic sciences, or applied sciences. The second point, is about
capacity in the countries
the capacity.
conduct this high level.
When you see Africa, as I said, contributes very little as a whole to global knowledge. But in fact, if you look at the contribution of Africa itself and try to see which countries are doing better than the others, you'll probably find 4 or 5 contributing almost 90% of the African production. So meaning countries like South Africa, of course, being a leading one, Egypt probably, Nigeria to a certain extent, but very few of them. But you are trying to relate this with the GMOs. That's why I said that Africa really needs to intensify its research effort in biotechnology, because we do not have so many excellent biotechnologies in the country. It is true that in Uganda they have a few, not many, and they have been advocating these GMOs for Uganda for a number of years, and they have been successful to a large extent, to the extent that now the law is in the parliament. We all hope that it will be approved soon. It will be an example for the other African countries. But again, the war still exists between Europe and Africa, and the Europeans. Well, I don't know how you can change the mindset here in Europe about GMOs. The press and the media has a lot to do, definitely, in making GMOs dangerous to the communities. This is the sort of thing that is transported to Africa, unfortunately, for other countries. It is unfortunate, but we really need a breakthrough. And again, I hope that countries like Uganda can provide that breakthrough.
Let me add just one comment to this, Eric. If you look at the question of costs for, say, biotechnology, what was the price of a PCR 15 years ago? Now you get a PCR for $3,500. If you look at this proliferation of CRISPR technology, it's going to make transformation basically like a democratic science. So there are, especially in biotechnology, costs are driven down and making research much more accessible across the globe. Please, Joachim.
I'm von Braun. Mohamed, in the part of your talk about the academies, you have essentially mapped out the emerging global landscape of science institutions. I'd like to push you a bit further on that theme. I agree with you. I think we will hear a lot more from Interacademy Partnership. You know, their first project on which we both work is on food and nutrition security.
Yeah, but that's not the partnership.
That comes under IAP.
It comes under IAP Science. IAP Science.
It's their first project. I want to push you exactly on that issue. What should they work on? How would they work, rather than being an umbrella organization serving on broad issues? Secondly, how can they work? Because an academy isn't an academy. Our North Rhine-Westphalian Academy serves government advice and is an academy of excellence, and so are the two German national academies. But you cannot really compare them with the rich academies of China, who are centers of excellence. So that's where the two are together. Will it work? Third, there are intergovernmental and international panels of science, not only on climate change, working. How does the academy framework relate to them? So I think we are moving towards a multifaceted landscape of international science and centers of excellence. And maybe they network by themselves, and we don't need a big superstructure. Maybe it's just a web of science, and driven by excellence. Do we really need a governance architecture for it? That's my question.
Thank you very much. Well, first of all, this Interacademy Partnership at the moment, of course, it is a partnership that involves the three global networks I just mentioned: IEP Science, Medical Sciences, and IEC, and then the regional networks. But the total number of academies that are actually involved in the development of these regional and global networks is 130. 111 of them are members of IEP, and the others are just pure academies of medicine. So we feel that issues like antimicrobial resistance are so vital to both IAP science and also IAP. And instead of IAP making a statement about this important issue and IAP making another one, it is better to look at an umbrella organization that can actually deliver statements, deliver reports on issues that are critical, that are interdisciplinary. And you cannot really separate science issues from, say, medical issues or engineering issues. And I think this is probably the beauty of this structure, is that from now on, we're going to have one series of statements for all the academies of science that is reflecting the 130 academies of science that are members of this global interacademy partnership. It's very unfortunate, quite frankly, that the medical people decided to have their own network, because that is not needed. Because you see, in science, you have not only basic sciences, you have engineering sciences, you have agricultural sciences, in addition to medical sciences. So if you decide that the medical people should have their own platform, their own network of academies, where you have about 70% of the members are also members of IAP science. Then you have the engineering people doing the same, and the agricultural people doing the same. One not really paying a lot of attention to the interdisciplinarity and interconnectedness of science. I think that is the point. Yes, there are different platforms, no doubt about that deliver policy advice. But I think the strength of the academies, policy advice, that's what I mentioned: independence, evidence-based, and authoritative. And independence is probably the key word. But the academies are not interested in any political issue. So they do things because they feel that this is the right statement based on evidence and the latest information that you can find in the science. So I think this is probably why these G8 academies, when they make a statement representing the G8 governments, they accept it and they like it. In fact, you will see in many of the communiques of the G8, you will see that a number of paragraphs have been just copied and pasted from the statements of the G8 academies. I think it's a very, very good sign.
Hans.
I admire your enthusiasm and the way you try to bring all these things together. But personally, I think there is a tension at the bottom of all of this. First, we train researchers, academics to do individually the best they can. Now, we want them to be very stubborn, not to be governed too much. And so there is a difference in way of thinking of the average academic scientist, researcher, and people are thinking in terms of governance, administration, institutionalization, all this type of things. So basically you see that the people coming on the top of the academies are not really, they do their best to find some of the best researchers of the past to take that type of job. But the main researchers at this time will not be there. That's a major problem. There is this continuous falling apart of science, and the lack of appreciation of the individual academic to see how important it is to all work together. Beyond that, there are too many to all work together. So it will always be a hierarchical system one way or the other. And very many people don't feel very comfortable. And so then you can say, okay, what is then the reason to do this? Is the reason to help society or to support science as an institution, to strengthen the position of science in society, rather? So all the discussions on what we contribute to society only have as a main purpose in order to be seen better and to be supported more. That's often the main reason why academics are prepared to be in this type of organizations. And then there is a major problem every time when you talk about, and I saw this in UNU in particular, when you talk about science for society, what is then the problem? What is the science that society perceives as being important for society at this stage? Because that is linked to what they know now, not what could be somewhere in the future. That's the problem. And so they always kind of lagging behind to what is really going on. So science for society, what is more important? What society perceives to be important, or what later on will give the biggest, the most important contribution to the improvement of life in society. Different things, and that's the problem.
I think it goes both ways. You see, here, there are not many academies are really doing this. But an active academy, an academy that's important, has got these links very well established. The links with the general public, the society, the links with the scientific community is probably where the link is strongest, because these are scientists that come in. The links with government, and this is the two-way. The government has to understand the value of the academy, and the value of delivering and getting an advice from the academy. And the academy also has to understand the priorities of the government, where they can act, essentially. And then to the development community, exactly the same thing that we mentioned. So I completely agree with you. But not many academies are doing that. And this is why we need somehow to energize these academies so that they can be more useful to society and to the rest of the communities, development communities and the others.
I agree with you. You have to try to do it.
We have to try to do
But
it.
there is all the time at the bottom of all this, there is this major difference.
For example, the National Academy of Sciences is very effective in relating to government and the scientific community and the development community. And every year, the National Academy of Sciences issues something like 200 reports. And these reports are actually asked by other stakeholders, sometimes by the government, but sometimes by various organizations in the United States. They want the National Academy of Sciences to deliver a report on a particular issue. So every year they get about 200 of those reports. But this is rather unique.
That's too many.
That's too many, but it's unique. But the demand is there. The demand is there.
Well, not in my country, I can tell you.
More questions? Please.
Thank you very much. Jan Othas, Food Prosperity Project ZEF. I find the idea of bringing the science academies together and or center of research and excellence under one umbrella interesting, but I also think like aren't there some risk associated to it? Like as economists, we want efficient markets with competition. And is there not a risk that competition will decrease and therefore innovativeness will decrease if we bring everyone too much together? And could it not be risky to become a bit more dogmatic or so, or more harder to criticize common knowledge or common perspectives? Yeah, thank you.
But I think academies, by definition, should be very critical when it comes to evidence. even in one academy, you may find different views. They argue and argue until they find common ground. So this is very common in academics. They are independent thinkers, and they base their thinking on what they see as facts. But sometimes they disagree with things. So this is the beauty of this critical thinking that you find in the academies.
Please.
Matthias Reipel, Center for Development Research. My question goes also into the direction of the demand for science from the policy side, and to what extent should the science community really be independent of the policy area? Because I mean, the danger is that the science community produces reports which the policymakers don't read or are not interested in. And on the other hand, the policymakers usually want some stake and some advantage or some benefits of these reports. And usually they want, or they have these benefits if they have some influence in these reports. And this is, for example, how the IPCC works, where governments have to approve the summary for policymakers. So they have some influence to prevent, for example, critical issues which might be critic of their own past policies. So what is, I mean, how does it work in the past with the reports from the African Academies of Science Network, and what is the optimal role there of influencing both sides?
But there are two ways. The way that is currently prevailing within academies is the supply push. So the academies feel that there is an issue that's very critical to humanity, to sustainability, and they want to make a statement. They want to say, what is the latest information in that issue? What do scientists, cream of the society, think about it in terms of recommendations? And they produce these statements, like the statements I've just indicated, and then they try to push it so that the policymakers can take note of it and maybe apply some of the recommendations there. And the good example I mentioned for the G8 academies, the academies of science in the G8 countries. Now actually it's the G7. Russia is being kicked out, I think.
Temporarily.
The last 2 years. Temporarily. But the one that I think, in my view, is more important is the supply. That the organizations, whether it is in the United Nations or national governments, feel that they are confronted with issues, science-based issues, and they can't take a decision. And they would like their Academy of Science, because the Academy can mobilize the best scientists in the country, to advise them on what to do. Now, this is an area where I think we are trying our best to make sure that the academies really reach that level of respectability within their society and government, so that the governments themselves and society will ask them for their needs and ideas.
Ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, let's continue this conversation with a glass and a bite, with a drink and a bite, which is served outside. Before, let's give Mohamed a big round of applause for